With as good as Ole Miss football is supposed to be in 2024, I can see every Ole Miss fan buying NCAA 25 this year. Twice, actually. This is the Locked On Ole Miss podcast.
You are Locked On Ole Miss, your daily podcast on the Ole Miss Rebels. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hi, I'm Stephen Willis, a former staff member at Ole Miss and a 10-year veteran member of the national media with Yahoo Sports. Also did a little time at WSMV in Nashville. Hope everybody is having a fantastic Friday. Today on the show, we are going to talk about EA bringing back their NCAA games with NCAA 25 and why Ole Miss fans should be excited other than the actual game itself, because there's plenty of ancillary benefits of what this game is going to bring. We talk about the College Football Playoff Committee and why they would be looking at expansion before a game is actually played, and why the South Carolina basketball game is the biggest Ole Miss basketball game in decades. This is the Locked On Ole Miss podcast, your daily podcast on the Ole Miss Rebels, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. We're free and available on all the podcast apps and on YouTube. Thanks for making Locked On Ole Miss your first listen every day, and a special hello to the everydayers who make the show what it is. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. New customers join today, and you will get $150 in bonus bets if your first bet of $5 or more wins. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to get started. EA Sports is finally bringing back their NCAA football season with the addition of NCAA 25. There's been a flurry of activity that has popped up over the last few days. There's probably going to be more as it gets closer to the release of the actual game. But this came out today. First thoughts, I'm very glad that Powder Blue and Ole Miss is going to be featured in this game, which we knew they would. But Ole Miss has never had Powder Blue as an option because in 1995, when Tommy Tuberville took over, right before the college football craze hit, Ole Miss went to the Navy helmet. So the Powder Blue has never really been an option until now. But per Pete Nakos, starting today, players can opt into appearing into the upcoming NCAA football game. All athletes who opt in will get $600 and a free copy of the game. That is a pretty good deal. Now, people are going to look and see the $600 and all that, and it's like, oh, the players deserve so much money, and they look at the value of EA Sports and all of that, and they're like, the players are getting ripped off. Well, nobody's buying this game because of the players. You could have quarterback number 3 play quarterback at Ole Miss and it not even look anywhere resembling what Jackson Dart looks like, and people are going to buy this game because of the Ole Miss stuff, because of the band playing, because of the noise, the ancillary stuff, being able to take Kennesaw State on a dynasty to a three-peat win in the college football playoff. That's the reason people are going to buy this game. Do not make any mistake. The players will be cool, but this is not Madden. This is not about being a special player inside the game. It's about being in the game. Being a part of this will be more beneficial for a player than a player actually trying to dominate their own prize. That's the reason NCAA football and EA set it at $600 and you can opt out at it, because it's just not worth paying more money than that. The benefits are all on the player's side for being in that game. And the reason I say that is Ole Miss has a chance this year, as everybody's popped out. They're a perennial top 10 team, consensus. Everybody would have Ole Miss in the top 10 going into the 2024 season. Okay. Everybody. Most of them would have them around number 5, number 6. Very heady waters. They're in the top 10 players at quarterback, wide receiver, tight end, potentially in the offensive line. There's defensive linemen that are shown as well. In other words, they're dudes all over the field. Ole Miss is going to be one of the it schools because of the ingenuity of Lane Kiffin's offense and what they can do, and the talent of Jackson Dart and Trey Harris and Caden Priestcorns and that guy, to where high school recruits age in the 11th grade going into their senior year, in the 10th grade, they're going to be playing with Ole Miss. Ole Miss has the best looking uniforms, potentially in all of college football. They have one of the more exciting offenses, and their brand is better than it's ever been. And this EA Sports NCAA football 2025 game is going to allow Ole Miss to take that next step. The recruiting, their Ole Miss is recruiting like Deuce Knight, Akylin, in this recruiting cycle. It's not going to affect them very much, but the juniors, the one right behind it, all of a sudden you can see the brand building that's going to happen. A lot of new fans are going to be created because of this NCAA football game and the level that Ole Miss is playing at the moment. I don't think that can be underestimated. So don't fall for the bait that you see on headlines of random player has opted out of the game. Who cares? It doesn't matter. Whether a single player that's actually a player is in the football game doesn't matter. What matters is Ole Miss is going to be one of the top teams in the game. They're going to have skill positions and offense that is outstanding, and they're going to have one of the best looking combinations in all of college sports. That in the hand of people binge playing these games, as they are prone to do, as we have done. Heck, I'm almost 50 years old, and I can remember early on just about every iteration of the NCAA football game. Heck, I bought Bill Walsh College Football, and I played with John Avery, and the term John Avery fast. I lived that era, okay? I understand the impact in pop culture that this game can have, because it does if you'll let it. And the outcry that you see right now of people being very excited for it kind of proves that. But Ole Miss has never had a team like they're going to have in 2024, to where it comes out of the box, ready to go and ready to compete. You don't play with Ole Miss in dynasty mode to build them up for a championship. You should win a championship this year in NCAA 25. That is the difference between the Ole Miss teams in 97 and 2005 and 2008 and those players in the EA NCAA football games as opposed to what they are right now. And all of that benefit is going to be in front of every high school recruit because they're all going to own it. They're all going to own this game. Everybody is. This is going to be potentially one of the best-selling sports games in U.S. history. And everybody that you're interested in recruiting is going to be playing football with your team, with your brand. They're going to slowly start falling in love with the color schemes, with the offense, with the defense. When you have Walter Nolan and Princely Amonmielen playing on the defensive side of the ball with Chris Paul. Defensive backs, we went over that yesterday as well. Offensively, Jackson Dart, Trey Harris, Ulysses Bentley IV, Juice Wells, Caden Priestcorn, heck, Nate Kalepo. All of these people are going to start to become household names because of the NCAA football game. So whether or not you play NCAA football, that is not necessarily the ancillary benefit of that happening. Even if you do not play it, realize what this could bring for the program and with the growth of the fan base. Because as it sits right now, Ole Miss probably has the second smallest fan base in all of the Southeastern Conference. Ole Miss is growing that slowly with their brand, with everything involved, and they're going to keep taking step and step and step because they're good on the field. They're good in that aspect. They look fantastic. So many things and so many boxes are being checked affirmative right now. And this NCAA football game is going to be a big deal for Ole Miss football going into recruiting, the playoff, the whole thing. If Ole Miss plays this right, and I think they will because they don't misstep much when it comes to the marketing and video and all of that department. If they play this right, Ole Miss will be a prominent team, if not the most prominent team that is shown on the NCAA football scale going through the next 8 months. If Ole Miss plays that right, and they should put all of that up, and you'll see like them making NCAA 25 graphics and the football team elevating them, amplifying them, because they want to bring eyeballs to them specifically when the game is released. It's not just a video game. It's a pop culture phenomenon that Ole Miss coming back is going to be the best positioned to benefit from it coming back. So we'll pay attention to that as well. All right. Thanks again for making Locked On Ole Miss your first listen of the day. We're just getting started. Why is the playoff committee already talking playoff expansion before our games even play? Do you love making money, but do you also love spending money? We all do, right? Now you can make money while you spend it every time you shop with Ibotta. Ibotta is a free app that gives you the most cash back every time you shop at hundreds of items from groceries to beauty supplies to toys. So you can make sure you're beating inflation no matter what you're purchasing. The average Ibotta user earns $256 per year. That could cover the cost of an entire shopping trip by itself. So you can buy that flight you've been eyeing, that game you're dying to go to, or that fancy dinner that you've been craving. The other apps that give you points, they don't amount to much. With Ibotta, just add your offers in the app, upload your receipt, and you get real cash that you can cash out to your bank account, PayPal, or gift cards. Join the over 50 million users and earn cash back every time you shop from over 2,700 brands and retailers, including Lowe's, Macy's, Sephora, Best Buy, and more. Right now, Ibotta has been offering our listeners $5 just for trying Ibotta by using the code LOCKEDONCollege when you register. Just go to the App Store or Google Play Store to download the free Ibotta app to start earning cash and use code LOCKEDONCollege. That's IBOTTA in the Google Play or App Store and use code LOCKEDONCollege. Locked On has launched the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube. Locked On Sports Today is here for you 24/7, covering the top sports stories of the day with the local experts of Locked On, plus our national shows that cover every single league. Go to Locked On Sports Today on YouTube and subscribe to the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel. All right, so we talked in the first segment about the EA Sports NCAA football game coming back and how that's going to be a really cool type deal. And Ole Miss has a chance to benefit from that more than most. Now, the next thing we're going to talk about is the college football playoff expansion. And we've been talking about the 12-team college football playoff expansion for the better part of a year, and we will continue to do so for the next 8 or 9, 10, 11 months. But some news came out yesterday that is at least interesting. It's from Ross Dellinger. And it says changes coming to the college football playoffs, more automatic qualifiers. On Wednesday, college football playoff leaders explored a variety of new models that grant multiple AQs, auto qualifiers, 10 to 12 total to the 4 power conferences in a 14-team format with 2 byes. Buckle up. Now, he went on to say more automatic qualifiers could, 1, increase the value of the regular season as teams jockey in league standings, 2, limit the subjectivity from the selection committee. However, the high number of automatic qualifiers per league, 2 to 4, could remove incentives to hold conference championship games. Yeah, duh, right there. And he also said in a story in December, Yahoo Sports explored future conference championship games in an expanding playoff era. Several high-ranking college leaders acknowledged that league title games should be re-examined. So why is the college football playoff automatically talking expanding this early and expanding with automatic qualifiers and still keeping the G5 tag in there? I hate that. But why are they talking about expansion right now? Well, we know this, and 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, sometime around there, it was announced that ESPN had basically extended the rights for all of that, the college football playoff, into like 2030 or something like that. And that was said, it got put out, everything got done, yada, yada, yada. And about a week later, it was like, pump the brakes on that. We haven't agreed to that yet. Why all of a sudden, if you just follow the steps of what is going on, right? to where everything's done, it's signed up, it's a 12-team playoff, ESPN is going to be the rights holder, to, well, we haven't done all that and we're discussing new models now. Why is that changing? Why is that important? Well, this is a very important concept that people need to understand. Right now, there's a power struggle that is developing within college football between ESPN and Fox that should not be ignored. And Fox, through their benefit, if you want to say that, has weaseled into the main part of the conversation by getting one of the Power 2 leagues. Disney got the other one completely. They managed to lock them completely down, but the Big Ten left and went the Fox direction as well. The whole part of delaying the college football playoff a year ago, what eventually cost Florida State a playoff spot, what eventually cost the Pac-12 their existence, was the Big Ten wanting to slow it down because they wanted the college football playoff to be Fox and ESPN in an NFL type model, to where there's half the rights on one side and half the rights on the other. So whenever you hear a couple of weeks ago that ESPN had ironed it up and everything had been taken care of, and then they say, well, not so fast, and that anything after 2026, we have to figure out what we're going to do, is about this Fox versus ESPN situation. Fox wants college football playoff matchups. They do not want ESPN to have that monopoly on college sports like they did for, 30 years of our life. For better or for worse, they're going to talk about their side more. They're going to make it a much more partisan. I know you always hear that phrase when it becomes about politics, but when it comes about conferences and college football, even that is segmenting and becoming much more partisan based, to where they amplify their own people, they downplay the other people, and they're worried about ESPN doing the same thing to the other way, to Fox News, Fox Sports, and maybe they're just iced out of the playoff forever. They want a seat at the table. And that is what this is about. It's about Fox trying to get in on the table. And the way that the College Football Playoff Committee can do it is by getting more inventory, more games, a 14-team playoff instead of a 12-team playoff, a 16-team playoff instead of a 12-team playoff. Those extra games can justify setting it up to where Fox and ESPN come to the table at the same time. They both have a stake in the college football playoff, which in the end is what they want. Is probably, honestly, if we're going to be real about it, what's best for the sport as a whole is both teams having a seat at it. So that is why the College Football Playoff Committee, all of a sudden, before they even play a game to realize if this 12-team playoff is going to work or not, is talking about expansion. People are going to talk about the ridiculousness of the notion, which it is. It's absolutely ridiculous. And why they miss the BCS, the old formula, the way it was. You have people all the time. It's like anything change is bad. Anything change is horrible. And the BCS was obviously a better time, and they can't tell you why. They just really liked the situation and what was going on there. And you had an NCAA game and all of this stuff was going on, and that coincided in that era. So obviously that era was correct. Without seeing a single game, I take the 12-team playoffs going to be a massive success. A 14-team playoff would be a massive success. A 16-team playoff would be a massive success. There's a degree of protectionism that's about to happen between the Big Ten and the SEC, and between both of them and the rest of the conferences, between where you see your football and the way you want it to be. And that is going to shape your idea going forward, because if it's not your way, it's absolutely the worst way. This is going to be a good situation for college football, and it's a bang up situation for Ole Miss. Ole Miss needs this expansion to go to 24 if they can. People might get upset with it, but honestly, I could see them doing away with the SEC championship game and bumping this up to 24, just like they do in the FCS. Play a couple of rounds of games on college campuses and just watch the money flow in. That would be beneficial for a school like Ole Miss, where you're talking about them being not just a playoff contender, but a title contender in 2024. Whenever this inevitably ebbs and flows a little bit, you do want a little bit of margin for error. You don't want a situation to where, when they did the +1 model, and that's what they did when they first started the playoff back in 2014, they call it a playoff. It was a +1 model. I mean, that's what it was. That was 4 teams playing a +1. But that was the only way that you could get the people that were BCS bowl centric to agree to it. And the playoff has done that. It served its purpose, but the ancillary thing that happened was 6 or 7 teams were able to actually recruit to the playoff, and everybody else was kind of also rants. So you needed a way to inject parity into college sports, or you're going to have a problem. You were going to have a major issue of the same teams winning and in the playoffs every year. I mean, how many times can we watch a Alabama or Ohio State game or an Alabama and Clemson game? That was becoming a problem. That's the reason they went to 12. And then you add in the NIL and the transfer portal and all that, and everybody, all the players started spreading out to other teams. And you're going to have 20, 25 teams that are able to recruit to the playoff, and you're going to have talent that is going to be accumulated in these players, and you're going to have a much better brand of football. Now, you're not going to have the elite teams that you had. 2019 LSU, 2019 Alabama, they're going to be better than every other team that comes after this because of the way the talent is dispersed around college football. It's just the way it is. I hope I explained that pretty well. If not, I do apologize. By the way, I do want to apologize. Barrett Lee apparently had a little bit of a skiing knock and hurt his knee, had to get an MRI during our interview today. He will not be coming on this week. We are going to get him next week, apparently. So stay tuned for that as well. Now, still more to come on Locked On Ole Miss, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. It's the biggest basketball game that Ole Miss has played in decades versus South Carolina Saturday, and we get to tune in and find out what happens. So get buckets with your first bet on FanDuel, America's #1 sports book, because right now, new customers can get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That's $150 if your bet wins. Bet on all your favorite players and teams with quick bets, same game parlays, exclusive props, and more. Just visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and shoot your shot. FanDuel, it's an official partner of the NBA. Thanks for making Locked On Ole Miss your first listen of the day, and shout out to the everydayers. Locked On has launched the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube. Locked On Sports Today is here for you 24/7, covering the top sports stories of the day with the local experts of Locked On, plus our national shows that cover every single league. For your second listen, go to Locked On Sports Today on YouTube and subscribe to the first ever national sports 24/7 stream channel. Be part of history. Now, this week was not a good week for the spring sports around Ole Miss. Ole Miss baseball, kind of broken right now. I don't know if it's the trip to Hawaii that's affecting everybody. I need to see something good happen versus High Point if you want me to continue to pay attention to it. I mean, we have Derek Vandegrift. He's Mr. Baseball. We talk about baseball all the time. If you want me to be an invested participant in the Ole Miss baseball program, you're going to have to start showing me something because of what was going on in basketball right now. What's going on in football right now, that has most of my attention. I mean, we are a podcast that is 90% football to begin with. I mean, we're unabashed. We're unafraid of it. We will do it every day. And there's going to be a show that I do in the middle of April that is going to be talking about spring practice battles between certain players we weren't expecting that kind of came out different than we were expecting. That show is going to happen. But there's the 5 and the 5 amongst Ole Miss Ole Miss sports. And that's basketball and baseball. And baseball and basketball is always going to have to fight more for my attention. Not saying I'm special. I'm just saying I'm doing it right here. So Ole Miss baseball is going to have to show me something against High Point and Iowa and get ready for an SEC slate that is kind of looking like being predicted 6th in the West might be the right thing. But it also could be the fact that this Hawaii trip just completely fatigued the heck out of them. So I want to pay attention over the next couple of weeks and see how that goes. But as of this weekend, the baseball first pitch got moved back to 5 o'clock Central Time to basically make it to where people can go to the South Carolina Ole Miss basketball game this weekend. This is a huge game. South Carolina's ranked. They're good. And you have a situation where this team and Ole Miss cannot afford to lose another game that they're not expected to lose. Because whenever you looked at the last 6 games that they had, you had a pretty much a given L because Ole Miss always loses in Starkville. You have Alabama that's a very, very good basketball team. Those were kind of the 2 L's that you could get away with. I'm not down with these people that called last night or Wednesday night a must win against Mississippi State because of Joe Lenardi and his made up numbers. A month before the selection committee actually goes through and selects the teams, you cannot select the teams. That is made up. A last 4 in, a first 4 out, and stuff like that. That is completely made up. It's a way that you can follow what's going on. It's marketing. It's stuff like that. It's essentially clickbait. But when you look at the games that were important, when you have Mississippi State on the road, Ole Miss was likely going to lose that game. You have Alabama at home. Alabama's a really good team. That means 4 games that Ole Miss absolutely has to win. And the toughest of these games at home are the South Carolina Gamecocks. And this game is going to be an absolute war. Ole Miss came all the way back and made this impressively close in Columbia, South Carolina, and they have to have this game. And because it's a ranked team at home, a must win, if you're looking at Ole Miss needing to go 4 out of 6, that this is a game they cannot lose without beating Alabama, you can see the importance that's placed on this basketball game. Now, the dividing line of what is a good season for Chris Beard and the Ole Miss men's basketball team is 9-9 in the SEC. That has not changed. But if you want Ole Miss to make the NCAA tournament, they probably need to finish out 4-1. I don't do necessarily, like I said, Mississippi State game was not a must win because everybody was chalking that up as a potential L. Same thing's going with Alabama, but those other 4 games, that's where it gets real. That's where the rubber meets the road with Ole Miss basketball. If they can win those 4 games, they're going to the NCAA tournament. If they drop one of those games, they're going to the NIT. Just kind of is what it is. Anyway, I hope everybody has a fantastic weekend, and thank you for making the Locked On Ole Miss podcast your first listen every day. We have Chris Childers slated for this weekend, and we wait on the most anticipated football season at Ole Miss ever. You can hear about it all right here. Today at 2 o'clock is going to be a deadline. We're not going to upload onto the audio feed until Monday afternoon. Because we are migrating over to a new podcast host. Everything's going to be slow. Everything's going to be different, but we've currently outgrown our current podcast host, and we need to figure out a way to make it work. So anyway, second listen, go to Locked On Sports Today. They've launched their first ever 24/7 sports streaming channel on YouTube. Locked On Sports Today is here for you 24/7, covering the top sports stories of the day with the local experts of Locked On, plus our national shows that cover every single league. For your second listen, go to Locked On Sports Today on YouTube and subscribe to the first ever National Sports 24/7 stream channel. For those of you on YouTube, we'll send you there right now. Have a great weekend, everybody. Hotty toddy.